Rudy Giuliani, who has been called America's mayor and was never my mayor. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. Literally because I did not live in New York City when Giuliani was mayor, and figuratively because I never accepted the title of America's mayor for Rudy. And I always want to find the positive in people, and I think that when he went to ground zero after the attacks and spoke calmly and confidently to people, that was significant. There's the credit I'll give Rudy. Besides that, Rudy Giuliani is a racist, bitter, demagogic clown whose recent buffoonery reflects his entire career.
He's also used the tragedy of 9/11 to exploit as much as possible to his own financial benefit.
That's exactly right. So we know that last week while we were away at a fundraiser for Scott Walker, Rudy Giuliani said to a room full of rich, bloated donors, you know, Barack Obama's not like you or me. He doesn't love America the way we do. He doesn't love America, and I know this is a horrible thing to say, and he doesn't love us in the room. I think he was right about half of that statement. Now, a lot of people have criticized Rudy for what he said, rightfully so, and he was on Megyn Kelly last week, and even Megyn Kelly asked him, Rudy, are you going to walk back these comments? They're insane. We're going to play what Rudy said, and then I am going to give you a rundown of who Rudy Giuliani is, how despicable he is, and why this is really nothing new.
Here now to respond, former New York City mayor and former Republican presidential candidate Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, do you want to apologize for your comment?
Not at all.
What's that music?
That's the music on the
Okay, go ahead.
That is the music on the
That
video.
is the music
yes.
on the video. Okay, it's interesting. Interesting music selection. Okay, go ahead.
I want to repeat it. The reality is, from all that I can see of this president, all that I've heard of him, he apologizes for America. He criticizes America. He talks about the Crusades and how the Christians were barbarians, leaves out the second half of the sentence, that the Muslims were barbarians also. He sees Christians slaughtered and doesn't stand up and hold a press conference, although he holds a press conference for the situation in Ferguson. He sees Jews being killed for anti-Semitic reasons, doesn't stand up and hold a press conference. This is an American president I've never seen before.
Okay, first of all, let's work this backwards. President Obama held a press conference for what happened in Ferguson versus the other two examples that Rudy cited for one relatively obvious reason, that Ferguson is in the United States of America where Barack Obama is president, and you're not, you racist little buffoon. Now, Rudy Giuliani would probably call a press conference if he were president and Ferguson happened to praise the conduct of the Ferguson Police Department, because that is exactly the type of mentality that Rudy brought to policing in New York City when he was mayor. So Rudy Giuliani became mayor on the back of a massive police outcry, not that dissimilar to the one that Bill de Blasio just faced against Mayor David Dinkins, who was New York City's first black mayor. Police rioted against Mayor Dinkins for calling for some very basic reforms in community oversight. They rioted. And Rudy went to a rally and backed up their rioting. That was what helped him become mayor. Now, yes, crime went down while Rudy was mayor, and there's a number of explanations as to why, including the lead hypothesis, which Sam is partial to, including a rising national economy, and an incredibly aggressive policing that Rudy overtook. Now, the other thing that happened while Rudy was mayor were skyrocketing rates of police brutality. Deaths of unarmed men with stunning regularity and not even a pretense of caring. You know, when one unarmed black man was murdered by the NYPD, the Giuliani administration responded by leaking his juvenile record to smear a victim, a completely innocent unarmed victim of a crime, to smear him by bringing up his high school misconduct. And the mayor said, in another instance, he was no choir boy about another innocent man that was killed. He wouldn't meet with civil rights leaders. He wouldn't meet with critics. He refused any request for basic transparency around City Hall, including ones that he was constitutionally obligated to provide. He ran a racially divided city, an economically divided city. And then, at a moment of immense unpopularity, after he had used taxpayer money to sleep with his mistress in the Hamptons, after he had dumped his wife in a press conference without even telling her, after all sorts of questions about patronage and corruption and everything else in his administration, he was mayor on September 11th. He performed well for a day or two, although he didn't really do much to help security at the World Trade Center, even though there was a bombing in 1993 under his watch as well. Did nothing to prepare for another terrorist attack. Very little. So his record on security is nil. He attempted after that to get basically emergency powers to extend his mayoral term, which thankfully was shot down. But you talk about someone who doesn't love America. This is a guy who has no respect for basic civil liberties. This is a guy who has no respect for constitutional mandates and city laws around term limits. Now, Michael Bloomberg didn't either, but to the guy's credit, he did go to the city council and just get the law changed. Rudy literally just tried to do a extra constitutional power grab. Then, just as Matt said, he spent the next several years exploiting the legacy of September 11th without doing anything for the emergency first responders to make sure that they got what was due to them, without doing anything on any serious foreign policy questions. And as a matter of fact, doing things like helping on the Dubai ports deal, which people had many legitimate security questions about, and selling his security expertise to far-right governments in Latin America, to far-right governments in Eastern Europe, and places like Trinidad, where he would go and basically just charge an exorbitant amount of money to say, you know what, do what I did in New York, harass the hell out of people on the street, crack heads, don't respect any civil liberties, and you will get a crime dip. And I really doubt that crime dip would have occurred without the broader trends in American society at that time, economically and environmentally. Then he ran for president, embarrassed himself with a pathetic run, which led to one of Joe Biden's, you got to give Joe Biden credit, a noun, a verb, and 9/11. That's what Joe Biden said, Rudy Giuliani. It's the only thing he said. This guy has no respect for the victims of September 11th. He has no respect for the American Constitution. And his resentment towards Barack Obama is mixed with the racism and demagoguery that has defined his entire career. And the question is not just whether or not Republicans will disavow what he said. The question is, why do you agree with him, but don't have the balls to say it in the same way? And the follow-up question is, how did this con last for so long? How did a man that presided over so many innocent deaths, who used race as a cudgel in the most diverse city in America, run this con for so long? How did someone with no actual security expertise, no foreign policy expertise, who didn't know the difference between the rate of the Iranian or North Korean nuclear programs, who probably couldn't even tell you the difference between a Shia and a Sunni, how did he run a foreign policy campaign? Those are the questions we got to ask. I'm done with asking questions about Rudy. I don't care what he thinks about Barack Obama. I don't care what he thinks about cigars. He is a corrupt buffoon who should be laughed out of American life. And the question is how did it last this long?
You know, the bizarre thing to me about whenever, Rudy Giuliani obviously included, because that's why I'm bringing it up, but other Republicans too, when they bring up how, when speaking about ISIS specifically recently, right. I've been noticing this. They bring up, no one's speaking about all the Christians being slaughtered by ISIS and the Jews or right. whatever other group of, but they never care to bring up that. You know what's also not being spoken up? In fact, you guys specifically go out of your way to not bring it up and demonize this group of people. The group that's hurt by ISIS more than anyone are Muslims.
That's exactly
There are more
right.
Muslims being slaughtered by ISIS than any other group, period. It's that simple. Yet that's what's not brought up.
And the
but
groups
they don't seem
fighting
to care.
ISIS on the ground, risking their life and fighting with everything they have, and including not only fighting ISIS, but protecting Yazidis, protecting Christians, are also Muslims. It's unbelievable. You're exactly right to bring that up.